You're listening to Why We Do What We Do.
Welcome to Why We Do What We Do Mini. I am your host, Abraham.
And I'm Shane.
And we're talking about employers and employees, paid time off versus sick leave. Let's go.
Yes. So I am fortunate to work at a place that I've got both of these things. It's interesting because they are two very different things that I don't think people realize there is an important difference.
Yes. Now, let's give a quick hypothetical here. Let's say you're a salaried employee at a business where you do get that paid vacation time as a benefit there. You're planning a family trip to a reunion to see family you haven't seen in years. And as part of your planning, you reserve a rental unit for the trip, you book your non-refundable flights, and you make all the arrangements for your pet and your house plans.
Yes. 1 month before your trip, unfortunately, you get horribly sick with an illness that puts you in the hospital and prevents your work for nearly 2 weeks. That really sucks.
Yes, but it's okay. You get paid sick leave, except that you didn't get paid sick leave. Instead, your employer applied your paid vacation time to your sick leave. Ooh. And now you don't have that paid vacation time left to go on your trip.
That is not good. So technically, PTO can be used for anything. It's simply stated that basically it's paid time off, not explicitly vacation days. So you can really use it for whatever. And there are actually not any laws that mandate vacation time specifically, but most employers offer some version of it. And this means that paid sick time can also mean paid time off. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go forward.
All right, so let's get into the meat of this discussion. And we've had a plan of what we wanted to talk to up to this point, and there's just a lot to cover, and I want to make sure we have time to get to it in the context of a mini. So let's just unpack what's going on here. There's a lot of this trend going on where employers offer this paid time off, PTO. And what most people plan to do with that is use it as vacation time. So they plan ahead of time that they're going to have vacation. Now, other employers will offer this sick leave, right? And sick leave is mostly applied to unplanned time off, like you got sick, that sort of thing. And they basically say, we want you to take time away from work when you're sick so that you don't get other people sick, etc. So we're going to make it so that if you get sick, you can take the day or, however many days, you'll still get paid for it. Don't come in if you're sick. Seems like a really good idea in theory, right?
Right. Most organizations set it up that PTO is earned as part of either you get it as part of your salary, part of your contract, or it's earned based on the number of hours you work. Sick leave is usually set up to say, hey, this is here. If you are somebody who has sick leave, it's, hey, this is here as an allotment just in case you get sick. You have these as kind of a backup. And that's usually how they're kind of arranged.
Exactly right. That is part of it. And so it often means that what happens is sick time is it's sort of a yearly allotment. And if you go over that, you just no longer get paid for taking time off for being sick. And you can see why there would be practical constraints for employers who only have so much to spend that they can't just keep paying people who don't come into work and don't produce anything and don't contribute to the financial viability of that organization. And so It makes sense to say this has got to be limited in some capacity.
Right.
Then, as you said, the PTO, it can be often different. As you said, it can be accrued. It can be like you get a reserved bank of it that eventually it can be drawn upon, but then it resets the next year. There are even organizations, apparently, that have a policy that literally says, take as much time as you need when you need, and it'll be paid time off as long as it's not hurting the company. We will not even try and manage it, basically. There's just when you need time, take the time. You need an afternoon, take the afternoon. We'll make it available. And they basically find that, and we're not going to unpack this part of it, but in those systems, people tend to not abuse that system. But where there is concern is when people abuse the system.
Right. Here's kind of an interesting thing, though. Employers who offer PTO may not be required to honor that time, whether or not an employee takes it. Or I'm sorry, they may be required to honor it, is what I should say. So employers who offer PTO may be required to honor time whether or not an employee takes it, meaning that employers may have to pay out the money that would have been used to cover the time that wasn't used. Kind of like if you don't use your vacation and you have PTO hours, the company may still have to pay you for those PTO hours.
Right. Now, the employers who offer sick time may be faced with employees who are constantly calling out sick because they can take the day off and then they get paid for it. And you can see where that would be very difficult, particularly for small businesses to handle because they only have a limited workforce. So one person out could mean that like that's a significant impact on their ability to kind of do business. And that means other people might be covering that, et cetera. And so what's happening, what I've been seeing happen in a lot of places is that companies are using employees' PTO, which is their vacation time in most instances, to cover their sick time. So employee has an unplanned illness, they take a day off, and their paid vacation time is now covering their sick leave.
Yeah, so that might be a problem, right? The idea is that it will reduce people from using their sick time unnecessarily. And so, or like just taking time off in general. But what happens when people really get sick? If you are forced to use your PTO in the event that you're sick, there is a very, very strong motivation to go into work while you're sick. Because why would you want to lose out on vacation time just because you got sick out of nowhere? That is something that's out of your control. People don't want to burn through their vacation days. Understandably, that's supposed to be time off. So why would you, like, you wouldn't risk that so you would come in sick?
I had a really hard time finding all of the like actual research on this. Mostly what I found was people's policies. So we kind of have to talk about this from understanding how reinforcement and incentive work to motivate particular type of behaviors after we have to listen to these particular types of ads. The ads are kind of like our paid sick leave, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
We're sick of the ads and they pay us.
Yeah. And then, I don't know, you leave because you're tired of listening to them. That's the sick leave part of it.
That's the leave part. Yeah,
you're sick of them, so you leave. And I hope that you don't leave. Stay here.
Yes. All right. Now, important thing. I think I'm sort of preaching to the choir with employees here, but employers who listen, just like consider what's going on here, right? If you incentivize people to come into work when they're sick, by making it so that they would otherwise be spending their paid vacation time on their sick time, that means you've essentially completely undermined the whole idea of sick time in the first place, which is the don't come to work and get everyone sick if you're sick.
Right.
And so now what you've done is you flipped it right back to the original problem. You're basically saying if you try and call it sick, we're taking away your vacation days. And what does that incentivize? That means that people who come in when they are actually sick. And when they do that, several things are going to happen. One, they're going to get other employees sick. Two, they could be getting their customers or other like people who come in sick. Three, they are likely to make more mistakes in their work. And four, even if they don't make mistakes, you probably see a diminished and probably overall poor performance at their jobs. So like,
right.
Bad outcome.
It's not good for anybody. It's not good for anybody. So we know someone whose job has this policy, and when someone got COVID, they came into work anyway because they didn't want to use PTO. They gave their coworkers COVID, who then had to call out because of this asinine policy, and they had to actually shut down their business for a day or two because no one would or could come into work because they were all COVID sick. So did the company save money? No, it actually cost them quite a bit of money because of that policy, because they incentivize people coming in sick.
Yeah. And I mean, if you get your customers sick or whoever the patrons of your business, if you will, like they don't want to come in while they're sick, and they might never come in again if they know you were the ones who got them sick. They might hold a grudge about that sort of thing, and understandably too.
Right. So there's a lot of things that are happening here. There's a complex network of decisions that can be made that can be costly for employers. I mean, that's the thing is when you are employing people, there are some costs to go along with it. But let's consider where the incentives are when a policy does put it on the employee to use PTO for their sick time. So we would argue that we can give employees the choice. If I'm really sick, then I would rather take the unpaid day and then have to use my PTO. Then it doesn't cost the business anything, and you can still be certain that I am not malingering or that I'm also not coming in and getting people sick. That's kind of the nice thing. Give people choices on how they want to handle that.
And if they're not really sick and they're just trying to take an unpaid day, while that can be annoying, it still reduces the overhead of paying them while they're not there. So like that is a way I was giving them just the choice of like, you can take a paid sick day or you can take an unpaid sick day that could come from PTO potentially. Not that that's even the best solution, but just as a way to consider where the incentives are currently aligned for employees and what they would do in those situations.
Right. And so, this isn't going to work in every situation. Employers just can't have a volatile workforce, and they can't force other employees to constantly double their work or cover for people, especially when they're doing other people's jobs or they're covering for a position that needs to be filled. But incentivizing people to come to work sick is ultimately the bad situation. Like, if you set it up so that people are more than likely to come to work sick, then there's a different problem. Now, there are other complex decisions that have to be made inside of that. There's also things like for folks that are chronically sick and there's accommodations. Those are different situations. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about somebody gets food poisoning and they can't come into work, and now they have to use vacation time to cover their time with food poisoning. And that's more of like those acute illnesses that we're talking about here.
Yeah, very much so. And I think it can be a little complex administratively, but it's ultimately going to save you more money to have a better, well thought out policy than to try and shotgun approach of just like, we're just going to spend all your vacation time, whether or not you're here. If you're gone, we're spending your vacation time. Like, that sets up such a wildly wrong way to go about it. Like, that's how you completely shoot yourself in the foot. I mean, you may as well just get a hacksaw and start cutting that foot off. Yeah. Because like there is no recovering from that.
By foot.
Yeah, by foot. You're gone. Going the whole saw route. And so I think the thing that makes the most sense is just trying to apply incentives in the right places. So I think give people the choice if they want to take an unpaid day. You could have sick leave be available, but just have some policies around like at what point is it not available when people are abusing the system. If you have someone who takes a sick day like every single Friday, they're like they've got Friday disease and they need to take a sick day off every single Friday or every single Monday or whatever, then consider like either this schedule isn't working for that employee and like you can shuffle some things around so that they have the schedule that they're going to stick to, or this is not a good fit for that employee and they maybe need to find a job that has more accommodating to their schedule. Maybe offer 4 10s instead of 5 8-hour shifts, and then they can have a 4-day work week and have a 3-day weekend every week. If you can handle that as a business, then like maybe consider that. But like, there's just consider having your policies arranged in such a way that it makes sense. If people are sick, take the sick time. If they want vacation time, use your PO time. You can plan for PTO, right? You can like make sure you have additional coverage. You can make sure you don't have as many things scheduled that person would need to do during that time. But if you're going to force them to take PTO for their sick time, things are going to go south really quickly.
Yeah. It's only going to cost you as the business owner.
Yeah. So we're saying this because it's impressive how bad of an idea that it is that smart people are actually implementing these policies that are so dumb, but also that like we want to try and bring some awareness to like just consider where you're placing incentives. If you take away people's reinforcers and make those reinforcers available for the wrong behavior, you will get the wrong behavior. Guaranteed. Yeah. That is how behavior works.
Period. You nailed it.
All right. Well, since I nailed it, I think that means that Why We Do What We Do Mini is out.
It is. See ya.
You've been listening to Why We Do What We Do. You can learn more about this and other episodes by going to www.wwdpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you have an awesome day.